Okay, looking at where you're coming from, you were the former executive director for Nigerian American Council, Washington, D.C. And you were also one time Nigerian spokesperson for Washington, D.C. But looking at the experience, we are a developing country. And looking at where you're coming from, do you think we're of age when we say democracy in Nigeria? Well, and I think I'll ask two questions in one. And do you think we have someone that can really, if we say we want someone to unseat this administration, do we think we have people credible to do that?
Oh yeah.
What you saw in Ekiti State. So both, I think you need to answer both questions.
Yeah, well, in general, I think, to take the first part of your question, yes. In general, I think Nigeria is moving ahead. It's moving ahead, not exactly where we should be, but the level of enlightenment is rising, and the level of understanding that this country belongs to all of us. This country doesn't belong to a few people, maybe 200-300 people, elites that might be sitting in Abuja somewhere, or that might be from a particular region of the country. Everybody in this country is a first-class citizen of this country, and we own this space completely without any equivocation. And so, having said that, the responsibility for the democratic governance of the country actually falls on all of us, whereby we have an obligation to all register and take stake in who we entrust our lives to for the next 4 years, as is going to happen in 2019. And having said that, that means that the voters card is an essential part of citizenship, because that's what's going to empower us to do what we need to do. And then at the level of the actual candidates that are readying themselves for 2019, of which fortunately happen to be one of them, I think that the opportunity for excellence is presenting itself, because so much mediocrity in leadership has held this country down for the past few years, maybe a little longer, but actually it's much more apparent since the past 3.5 to 4 years that this country must rise beyond where it is now. This level of mediocrity in national leadership will drag all of us down. And if Nigeria is going to advance to the 21st century and be a force to be reckoned with a living standard that equals that of many advanced countries, and with insecurity being completely contained, then we have to prepare ourselves to elevate the leadership. And to elevate the leadership means that we need to call back or pull back people who hold national leadership that have not been able to perform to a level where all of us feel that the nation is moving forward. And that is where I come in particularly, because to run a complex country like Nigeria, you require a certain level of understanding of diversity of people, diversity among nations, because you have to tap from the best. You don't necessarily arrange your clansmen around yourself because the clansmen that you drink tea with, and you think that that's what it takes to run a nation. To run a complex nation, you bring the best of everyone. And the diversity itself is a strength, because it allows each person to think a little differently, and then is summed up in a hybrid policy that can now cater to everyone in the country.
Honorable, if I may come in there, you talked about, it being a collective effort if we were to change Nigeria, and then, civic responsibility. But the general mentality here in the country is, look, my vote doesn't count, so I'm not going to do anything about it. And then with the report of the money inducement, in Ekiti State, what do you think would be the behavioral effect of that on the part of the electorate towards the 2019 election?
Yeah, well, I would like to say with a certain level of authority that the votes are going to count this time. And so let us not, or let nobody think that, oh, well, it's not going to count because it didn't count in the past. All our votes are going to count, because there is technology that exists today for any serious candidate, especially at the presidential level, to be able to not just mobilize their votes, but to watch their votes. And I don't think anybody who is worth their salt would invest resources to rig when that same election is going to be overturned, because any attempt to compromise this election must lead to elections in particular regions or wherever it is that it was compromised to be overturned. Nigeria now has records of actual elections that were overturned against the people who actually may have rigged elections and a rightful winner installed. And so it is not going to be business as usual. The technology exists today. I'm certainly fully aware of the technology that exists to actually track the votes. We're going to invest in resources such as the agents of each candidate or each party that are going to watch those votes in every single polling center in Nigeria. And once we have done that part, once we have gotten our PVCs and voted, and we and other candidates would now take care of watching those votes. And once we have done that, it is not going to be a walk in the park for anyone to think that they can rig this election. It's an election also that is going to be watched by the international community like no other, because there's a lot at stake. It's either Nigeria, it's moving forward or it's moving backwards. And if it's moving backwards and we all want to go back to the Stone Age, then we all have to have a say in the matter. It'll be one thing if 180 million of us or 200 million of us say, well, we don't like the good things of life anymore. We don't like electricity. We don't like to have good roads, communications infrastructure. We want to go back to Stone Age and live in caves. If we all say that, then that's fine. But I know that Nigerians are not in that mode. Nigerians in a forward-thinking mode. We cannot be going back to leaders from the 20th century. We need leaders for the 21st century, such as myself, with worldly credentials. And once we get this done, then you will not recognize Nigeria in another 4 to 6 years, because it takes ideas and vision and knowledge and competence to drive a nation. You know, the fact that anybody has been in politics in Nigeria over the past 40 years, a person grew up in the oil economy, that is all ancient history. What counts today is the intellectual capacity